It is my absolute pleasure to introduce fellow Rhode Islander, Richard Jenkins. Well, welcome to the United Theater.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So you are a Rhode Islander now.
No, I am. Not from here.
From Illinois?
Illinois. I've been here 49 years.
And
I'm a Rhode Islander, yeah.
You got your start with Trinity Rep in Providence, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I heard a story that it was kind of an accident that you came to Trinity Rep, or not that you came to Trinity Rep, but that you came back to Trinity Rep. Is that?
That I came back to Trinity Rep? Well, I got the job. I auditioned for Adrian Hall, who was the artistic director of Trinity Rep in 1970. And the guy that went into audition before me had a guitar. And I could hear him singing, and Adrian was clapping and laughing, and they were just having a great time. I thought, oh boy. So the guy came out, and he was thrilled and waved at all of us and left. And then I went in and I auditioned, I read, and Adrian said, thank you. And I thought, well, that's the end of that. And then he called me up, and they said, we'd like to hire you as an apprentice at Trinity Rep. I said, really? Okay. So the first show I was in, Adrian turned to me and he said, and I want you to play the guitar now. You play the guitar right here. And I said, I don't play the guitar. He said, yeah, I want you to play the guitar right here. You strum the guitar. I said, Adrian, I don't play the guitar. And he looked at me and said, darling, that's why I hired you. He thought he hired the other guy, but he hired me. Yeah.
So what made you stay in Rhode Island then?
I love Trinity Rep. It was a great place. I was here 14 years as an actor. Our kids were born here, and we fell in love with the state. And so when I started to do movies, we just decided to stay.
Was theater acting something that you had your aim set on from
No,
the start?
no, it was movie acting. It was not theater acting. I mean, the theater was accessible. The theater was there for you. It was possible. Movies were like, I don't know how you do that, you know. I went to Los Angeles for about a year, and that didn't work out. So I thought that career in film was not going to happen for me. So I love the stage, and I love Trinity, but I always, since I was a kid, wanted to be in the movies.
What kind of movies were you loving when you were a child?
It didn't matter. I went every Friday night and then Saturday night to the next theater. There was 2 theaters in my hometown. We went Friday night to the Egyptian Theater and Saturday night to the DeKalb Theater, DeKalb, Illinois. And whatever was playing, we went and we watched. And it was like, how do you do that? That's what I want to do. So, but it seemed like an impossible thing. So, you know, for me to be sitting here tonight talking to you is so weird. When I look back on my life and think how it all happened, it's just really strange.
You've played so many different types of roles. I'm just going to go through some of these. You've played college professors, doctors, an FBI director, a mob emissary, newspaper editors, a priest, a recovering alcoholic, private detective, a general, a vampire enabler, a funeral director, a U.S. senator, and a lot more. I'm just wondering, what did the young Richard Jenkins want to do? I mean, did you want to act, or did you have some other career path, or you know, did you want to act and do all of these things and kind of wear every hat?
I always wanted to be an actor. For as long as I can remember, I wanted to be an actor. I just didn't understand what it was. I mean, I never saw a play until I went to Chicago and saw Bye Bye Birdie. And I was like 14, and there were kids that seemed to be my age on stage, and it was incredible. But I always wanted to be an actor. Actually, there's a story that I was nominated in 2008 or 9, and they did an article in my hometown paper, and a drama teacher, an English teacher from middle school, I was about in 8th grade. I did one-act play, and I came home. I don't remember this, but it was in the article was, I didn't know this. She was telling the story. I came home and I told my parents I want to be an actor. And my father, not to my face, when I left the room, said to my mother, I will not allow that. It's not going to happen. He'll starve to death. That's not the way a human being makes you can't live that way. And so my mother called this English teacher, and she said, you have to speak to my husband. He's being unreasonable. And she said, put him on the phone. And he said, I will not allow it. I just won't. And she said, all right, well, okay, you can put your foot down and not allow it, but you have to be willing to accept the fact that he will never forgive you for the rest of his life. If you're willing to deal with that, then go right ahead. And my father was my biggest fan. I never knew that. And I never got a chance to thank him because I never knew how hard it was for him to be supportive of me, because he was terrified that, and as was I, that I was, going to starve to death. But yeah, anyway, that's just a story that, and actually I went back and knocked on her door and thanked her one day.
And you got your start kind of later in life when it comes to television and film. I'm not going to go through your entire filmography with questions as much as I'd like to, but I'm going to try to touch on a couple of key roles that you've played. Tom McCarthy directed you in 2008's The Visitor, for which you were nominated for Best Actor. Yes, definitely clap for that. So I read somewhere that...
Thank you, Sharon. That's my wife. You started the applause. Thank you, Sharon.
I read that McCarthy had you in mind for the role from the beginning,
Yeah.
And I found a quote that he said that you had an amazing and wonderful everyman quality. What do you think about that? Do you think that's an accurate description?
Yeah, I'm pretty nondescript, I think is what he was saying. I think that was his point. But I mean, it's like I'm not, I didn't look in the mirror one day and say, boy, you got a face for movies. It's not something so I knew what he meant, and yeah, and I am that. I mean, I don't stick out in a crowd.
And I mean, that movie was your real big
Huge.
role.
Yeah, huge.
Huge success.
He called me up and he said, I've written this part for you, and I want you to read it and tell me if you want to do it. And I read it, and I said to my wife, I usually don't do this because it's like, Sharon, read this script. No, but I said, you have to read this and tell me if it's as good as I think it is. And he called me back the next day and he said, do you want to do it? And I said, Tom, nobody's going to give you the money to do this movie with me in this part. And he said, that wasn't my question. My question is, do you want to do it? You let me worry about the other thing. And I said, yeah, absolutely. So.
How was it working on that film? And
it was incredible. It was incredible. It was just incredible. Usually, I play supporting roles, and they say cut, and you can go get a donut. And you couldn't in that. I was in everything, so it was like, I was there from morning till night. It was amazing. You always think, can I carry a film? I've done it on stage, but it's a whole different thing in the movies. So it was an incredible experience.
You've also played a number of dads on screen.
Now grandfathers.
Your father characters run the spectrum from the slightly closed-off patriarch Nathaniel Fisher in 6 Feet Under, to the annoyed and over-it father, to the adult John C. Reilly, and stepfather to the adult Will Ferrell and Step Brothers. There's quite an impressive range of father figures there, and I'm just wondering, you're a father yourself, where do you fall in that father spectrum?
It depends on the day, I guess. You have to ask my kids, but, I don't know. Everything you do comes from you. That's where it is. It's not, you're not, everything is from you. So it's all there. It's all me, I guess. Yeah.
And Step Brothers, that role is unlike a lot of roles that you've done. It's a very, very funny movie. It's ridiculous at times. How was it working in that environment with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly? And I know Adam McKay, the director, likes to improvise and kind of throw curveballs.
Yeah, Adam said, I like to do the script a couple of times, and then I like to improvise actor. I said, we never got through 2 words of this script before people started improvising. Yeah, it was way too much fun. It was hilarious. And incredibly generous. That's the thing about these guys, like Will Ferrell and Adam McKay and John C. Reilly. They're really generous. They're not. I mean, they want everybody to do well, and they're incredibly supportive. And it's their world, of improvisation. It's not really my world. It's not something I do. But it was incredible. It was just too much fun.
There's a scene in that movie where you have this whole speech about how you wanted to be a dinosaur when you were a kid. It's one of the most memorable parts of the movie, and I've seen it on T-shirts. I think the line is, "Don't lose your dinosaur."
Don't lose your dinosaur. Well, okay. Here's an example. We were doing the scene at the Catalina Wine Mixer, and Adam McKay, the director, said to me, "Go tell John and Will when you were a kid you wanted to be a dinosaur." And I said, "Adam, what are you talking about?" He said, "Yeah, just go tell him that you wanted to be a dinosaur." I said, "Well, Adam, what? Are you kidding me?" No, go ahead. So I did. That's the speech. We did it, I think, once. And I came back and I said, "Well, that won't be in the movie." And he said, "Oh, yeah, it will."
I've also read that you don't like to make too many decisions about characters before you take on a role. You like to focus on choices in the moment while on set or in rehearsals. I mean, is that how you approach all of your roles? Do you come from an improvisation background through theater?
It's not really improvisation. It's not improvisation. I don't come from that world, but it is. If you make a decision as an actor, it's dead. It's just dead. If you have to live your life on the screen. That's what you have to do. That's what I want to see, a human being on the screen. I don't want to see a character. I don't want to see somebody that I know what they're feeling or thinking every second they're on the screen. I want to watch somebody dealing with what's going on in front of them. And so that's what I try to do. And when you make decisions, when you say, "Oh, I've heard a lot of actors say this. My character would never do that." Oh, it says right here in the script you do that. So you got to, it's a weird concept. It almost sounds lazy to say it, but it isn't. It's I see the great actors always did that. They just live their life on the screen, and they're open to what happens around them. And from that, you find things that you could never think of if you sat down and tried to make a decision about something for 100 years. And it's just a matter of trust, and it's taken me a lot of years to get there, because you want to please, and you want to, a director will say, be a little more angry here, be a little, try this, and it's back. And so you just have to, at this time in my life, you just go, wait a minute, let's see what happens here. So,
I know that Guillermo del Toro, who directed The Shape of Water, likes to create secret backstories for his characters. Right. So how do you go into working with a director like that?
Okay, here's the story. He wrote an 8-page backstory for Giles, and he said, "Take it or leave it. I wrote it. You can take it or leave it. You don't have to use it. But what I know he wanted people to. So I read it, and he said, "Are you going to use it?" I said, "No." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because, Guillermo, it's not on the page. I don't care who my mother was, unless you put it in your script, and then we'll deal with it. But I have other things I'm dealing with, which is Sally and the television right now, and this creature and it's confusing. It's just not helpful for me." And so when I lost the Golden Globe, he was sitting next to me, and they, of course, announced Sam Rockwell, as they did for the entire award season. He said, Guillermo said, "If you had used the backstory, you might have won."
How was it working with him? He
is the best. He's just absolutely the best, he said to me one time, the first time I said, hey, Guillermo, it's not working. I gotta change it up. And he said, okay, good. So I changed it up, and I said, oh, okay. I said, you want me to do it a different way, in case this doesn't turn? No, Richard, no. That we are not that kind of men. He said, we make a decision, we stick with it. About a minute later, he comes over and he said, I think we'll shoot it another way, just to be sure. He's absolutely hysterical, effortlessly hysterical, and he's brilliant. And he knows more about movies, and he knows more about making a movie than anybody I've ever met. This was his homage to Hollywood. It was like being in a 1940s Hollywood classic, shooting it. It was lit like a black and white movie. It was shot like a 40s classic. There were no handheld cameras. It was all, nothing was still. It was all cranes and dollies like they used to in the old days, coming around. And it was like you think Spencer Tracy was going to walk around the corner. I mean, it was like heaven for me to do this movie, because it just felt like I was in a different time. And it's the kind of movies I grew up watching. And so, I mean, not, somebody falling in love with a fish man, but, but the love story and the way it was shot, the way the story was told, it was very classic Hollywood. And he did it on purpose. Yeah.
Is it true that he pitched a remake of Creature from the Black Lagoon to Universal, where the creature falls in love?
Yeah.
And they said,
no,
absolutely not.
So he made The Shape of Water.
So he made The Shape of Water.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he loved the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and actually, my wife Sharon and I watched it the other 4 or 5 months ago, and you do realize the creature gets a bad deal. It's like they come into his lagoon, and they ruin the place, and he's like, it's his problem. I just find it's really, if you're hanging around Guillermo del Toro, you go, well, let's look at it from the creature's point of view, and he always is. That's the way he's always seen monsters, as gods somehow. Yeah.
So speaking of directors, I'm just going to go through a list here. You've worked with some of the most incredible directors working. Mike Nichols, Catherine Bigelow, Clint Eastwood, David O. Russell, Lawrence Kasdan, Woody Allen, Sidney Pollack, Tom McCarthy, Robert Redford, George Miller, Catherine Bigelow, Rob Reiner, the Coen brothers. I mean, that list goes on and on and on and on and on. So, I mean, that's a lot of different temperaments of directors. So, as an actor, what are the trademarks that you consider the qualities of a good director or an easy to work with director? Or
well, I like a director that watches. That's basically all I ask. I'm not crazy about a director that's looking for something specific. Because if you're looking for something specific, you don't see what's going on around you. Because you just say, I don't see it, it's not there, it's not there. But if you're watching, you see everything. It's just like acting in a scene. If you're doing something, okay, I hate her, it's in my head, I hate her. You don't see, nothing comes at you. You can't take anything in. So I like directors who watch and see what you do and see what you bring. Yeah.
Is there any particular director that you haven't worked with that you'd love to give a go?
I don't usually think. I always thought I liked to work with Spielberg. It's like, but he's never cast me, so I don't need Steven. Mike Nichols was amazing. Mike Nichols, this was an amazing man. I did 2 movies with him, and the first movie I did was Wolf. And he said to me, I played a detective, and he said, what do you think about this guy? I said, I don't think he's very bright. He started to laugh. He goes, really? I said, why? I said, well, I'm just reading the script on him. He just asks kind of dumb questions. And he goes, that's interesting. And I said, okay, so the first day we're shooting, I'm in the detective's office, and they say, this is the first day I'm shooting on a movie with Mike Nichols, who is like this, giant. And they say action, and somebody yells my name, and it says it's your mother on line 2, and it's Mike Nichols. Mike Nichols is saying, and it's from the other room. I think Gruber, whatever my name was. You're not Gruber. I don't know what it was. Your mom's on line 2. So I picked the phone up. There's nobody there, and I start talking, and I said, "What, Mom?" No, you put the television on 3, not the cable box. What are we having to eat tonight, Mom? Again? We're going to have that again? Is there any whiteout, Mom? I had a typewriter and I was making mistakes. And so anyway, I hung up and this voice from the back said, "Oh, you live with your mother." I mean, he was an amazing guy. Incredible.
Have you ever thought about directing yourself? I know you've directed theater and at Trinity.
No, I don't think like a movie director. You know, you have to have a movie in your head when you direct a movie. In the theater, you kind of find it in rehearsal. And you can do that in movies, and as an actor, you do it all the time in scenes. But as a director, you have a set for a day. You have to finish it in a day and move on to the next set. You have the car wash for 4 hours. So you have to have a shot list. You have to know how to. I don't think like that. No.
You have a line in The Shape of Water where you say, "If I could go back to when I was 18 and didn't know anything about anything, I'd give myself a bit of advice." Your answer is, take better care of your teeth and, I'm paraphrasing, have a lot of sex. What advice would you give to 18-year-old Richard Jenkins?
God, advice is cheap. Take better care of your teeth and fuck a lot more. I don't know. My father was a dentist, so that's true. He was a dentist. My father was a dentist. Advice is cheap and free, and I try not to give too much of it.
So before we open it up to questions from the audience, can you tell us what do you have in the works? What's coming up?
I just finished a movie in Los Angeles. I just got back. A young writer-director named Miranda July. Really talented. And I didn't really want to work. I wasn't excited about it. And then I got this script, and I just loved it. It's about a family of grifters. I'm the father, Deborah Winger's the mother, and Evan Rachel Wood is the daughter. And it's just like, it's such an original voice that I loved making it. Yeah.
All right, now we're going to open it up. So if anybody has a question, just raise your hand and we'll call on you, and someone will be walking around with a microphone.
You do know we can't see anybody out there.
We can't really see, so.
No.
Let's start right here in the front row.
Hello, Richard.
Hi.
The other reason I came, because I would never have seen this movie, because the subject matter didn't interest me, so I wouldn't have seen this movie. So the reason I'm here is this format, to actually talk to you. And
Well, if you hated my movie, I don't know what I want to talk to you about.
I didn't say I hated it. I didn't say I would never have seen it. But now I have seen it. I just recently furnished an apartment, and I used movie posters as my artwork. I have 93 of my favorite movies up on my walls. And full disclosure, I'll tell you my 3 favorite movies of all time: Amadeus, Dr. Strangelove, and A Christmas Carol with the very oldest one. It was but anyway, The Christmas Carol. Now, whenever I have a visitor to my apartment, before I let them in, I ask them this question: what are your 3 favorite movies?
Those 3 that you just mentioned.
No, that's not fair.
I don't have 3 favorite movies.
That's not true.
Favorite movies come along when you need them. And I do have movies that have helped me in my life.
Well, pick 3.
Give me a second, buddy. Alfie, the movie with Alfie, with the original Alfie with Michael Caine. I was a student in school, and I didn't know if I wanted to be an actor, but I didn't know if I had the talent or the ability I just didn't, I was kind of at sea. And I went to see this movie on my own, and I saw this performance, and I thought if I could ever in my life do something like this, and that kind of spurred me on to go on and pursue acting. There was a wonderful little movie called Bread and Chocolate, an Italian movie with Nino Manfredi. He couldn't make up his mind. My life is about not being able to make up my mind. That's basically my life. And it was like, was he Italian? Did he want to be Swiss? What did he want to be? That came along, and I loved it. And then I discovered Spencer Tracy. And as an actor, you just realized this guy was ahead of his time. And when you watched him, he was inspiring. So it is a strange choice, but Father of the Bride, the original Father of the Bride, he is so brilliant in it. And he takes that kind of slight movie and makes it just special. So,
Is the bride, right?
yes, she's the bride. Yeah.
And by the way, it's Alistair Sim's version of Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, you must see it.
I think I have. We've all seen it, haven't we? Yeah. Yeah.
I found this movie very mystical and very spiritual. So in the process of making that movie, did anything happen to you in terms of deepening your spirituality or your understanding of mysticism?
No, but it did. It made me almost fall in love with film again, in a way that I hadn't in a few years. The love of Guillermo toward what he was doing just made you think that film is art. You know, that it's in this profession, it becomes a craft. It becomes skill, like you're making kitchen cabinets. And the truth is, at its best, it's an art. It's a beautiful art. And whether one likes the movie or does not like the movie, the fact that Guillermo del Toro, this movie was coming from a place in him that was so personal, and I hadn't seen that in a while in movies, it was just a reminder to me of why I do this. He turned to me, when we were at the Venice Film Festival, the first time no audience had ever seen this movie, and he turned to me and he said, before they started to roll the film, if they don't like this, I don't know what I'm going to do. Because that's how personal this movie was for him. And I said, that's the best thing in the world, Guillermo. That's such a risk. And that's what art is, you know, so that's...
Hi there. I wanted to ask you what your most favorite and least favorite films to make have been and why.
I like them all, you know, but usually it's funny, the most successful ones become your most favorite. Don't know why that is, yeah. That's odd, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. But, you know, I made a little movie. I made a lot of little movies, and nobody's ever heard of some of them. But there's a little movie I made called Norman that I just love. I love the idea of it. I love the movie. I loved making it. And Geraldine Chaplin said to me, the first movie I ever did, I said, do you think this will be any good? And she said, we have nothing to do with that. Did you enjoy making it? I did. That's all you can ask. That's it. You can't ask for anything more, even though we do all the time. We want it to be good. You don't do it. I mean, it's not finished until you see it. It's not, you know, to make a good movie and nobody sees it, then it's not finished until an audience sees it. And that's when the art happens. So, you know, when you do a movie that you like and people appreciate it, it's incredibly moving. And because there's a kind of you realize that as different as we all are, there's something that connects us all. And as an actor, that's so gratifying. Because when you're an actor and you do something and it means something to you and people see it and go, yeah, that's just, it's personal. It's personal. Same with the director. And we put barriers up and say, you know, it doesn't matter if they liked it or they didn't like it. Well, it does matter. It absolutely does, because it's a medium of communication, of an emotional connection. And if you do it and you feel it and nobody else does, you feel like, yeah, it's a failure. That's what you feel like. But so maybe that's why the movies that are successful, you tend to really connect to. But you don't know. Nobody knows. There's a wonderful book, Adventures in the Screen Trade, by William Goldman, a great Hollywood screenwriter. Then the first line in the book is, the thing you learn about Hollywood is nobody knows anything. But that's the truth. And if anybody did, every movie would be a hit. But that's the kind of the beauty of it all. So for the most part, I don't know. You know, I sound like an old man, but I am. I've done so many movies that I forget sometimes. And somebody will bring one up, and I go, oh, God, I like making that movie, you know. Sometimes I'm watching a movie on television, and I say, oh, this looks familiar. And then I pop up, and I was like, oh, my God. And I've been doing movies so long, people will say, oh, I saw you in that movie. Yeah, that was a good hairpiece. That wasn't a hairpiece. That was my hair. Yeah.
You can probably hear me.
I can, yeah.
I'll take the mic anyways. So, I'm trying to think of how to properly format this. I had been looking forward to Shape of Water for a long time. I actually took the train up from my college here in Providence to Boston to see it because it was playing there earlier. I can credit Guillermo del Toro for getting me interested in film and the art of filmmaking. So now I'm at this point, I feel weird calling myself an artist, but you know, I go to the Rhode Island School of Design. I want to be a conceptual artist for film, a production designer, and an art director. And so often I feel like when I make art, I look at my art and it becomes very self-critical. And you know, there's obviously a good side of looking at your work and wanting to see how you can improve it and how you can better it. But so often I feel like I make something and I just dislike it so much that I kind of don't want to make anything else, and I just get kind of stuck in this rut. I don't know if this feeling is relatable to you. I know a lot of artists I personally know experience it, but I guess, you know, you're clearly somebody who's very successful at following your passions, and you know, I look up to you greatly, and I look up to people like Guillermo del Toro greatly. So I guess, do you have any words on maybe how you've kind of managed those things, or how you can kind of be critical of your own work while still being able to improve it?
That's the only way you can improve it, is to be critical of it. And don't be ashamed to call yourself an artist. Think of yourself as an artist, because what you do means more to you then. If you think of yourself as a craftsman, it's not the same. Think of yourself, you are an artist.
Thank you.
And you know, I don't know an actor worth their salt that doesn't have so much self-doubt and think they suck all the time. It's
Yeah.
But you know, the only thing I tell, this is what advice I do give to young people who are actors. The only thing you can control is your talent, or how good you are, or how good you get. You can't control who hires you, who buys your art, who likes your art, who does. But you can control how good you are, and you have to take that by the horns and just do whatever you can to get better and better and better. And don't look at criticism of your work as a terrible thing. It's a blessing. Because people who do things and think, aren't I wonderful? They never are. I mean, they never are. Because there's no examination. There's no looking and really looking at it and saying, am I any... I had an old acting coach once, who just died this year. Wonderful, and I would say to him, how was it? And he said, don't you know? You better know, because you're the one who's doing it. And, you know, so don't look at this as a tragic flaw. Mm-hmm. This is a gift you have.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay?
Thank you.
You had your hand up. You, I don't think. You know. You shouldn't be an artist. No, because you're in there. Okay, good. You've been hearing this for a long time.
I'll listen to you.
So my curiosity is killing me. How did you make the transition from Trinity to your first movie?
I have no idea. I'll tell you what happened. And I don't know. I was doing a play at the Long Wharf Theater in New Haven, Connecticut. Holiday, by Philip Berry, I think it's Philip Berry. And there was Sandy Dennis. Do you remember Sandy Dennis? She came with her manager, a guy named Bill Tresh, because they had a home in the country when he was a manager in New York, and on the weekends they went to the country, and they always went to the Long Wharf Theater. And I was doing in the second act, she turned to Bill Tresh and she said, "Sign him." So he came backstage that night, he knocked on the dressing room door, and he said, "I'm Bill Tresh." And I knew who he was because I had a friend who was one of his clients. And he said, "I'd like to sign you." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be in movies." He said, "Okay." I said, "I don't live in New York." He said, "I don't care where you live. But if I call you, you have to come to New York. You can't say, no, I'm busy, it's too long, because it's not going to work." I said, "Okay." So I would take the train, back when it was 4.5 hours to New York. And I would go audition. I get a call, "You have to be here." I said, "Just don't make it at 8 o'clock in the morning. Just try to get me an afternoon." He said, "Okay." And I would, like 2 lines, I would go, "Freeze, thank you," So I take a 4-hour train ride back home. And I get home and I get a call, "You got to come in tomorrow for this other television show." They went, "Okay." So I go back in, "Don't move." That was my line. And I did this for years and years. And the first part I got that kind of changed everything was The Witches of Eastwick. And Bill, my manager, I think, as I recall him telling me, he was on a plane with George Miller, the director, and he talked him into giving me the part. I had auditioned for him, and it was between me and somebody else. So it was, I don't know, man. When I look back on my life, and I think I almost didn't do that play at the Long Wharf Theater. I turned it down 2 times. I didn't want to be away from home. I was, I just think it's just weird. I don't know how it happened, but, and I never thought I was 36 when I started doing movies. And I just never thought it would happen, but it did. It's weird. I don't know.
What was that manager?
He's still my manager. He was. He took me out of regional theater. He put me. He believed in me. He's the first person to ever believe in me. Somebody who could help me. I mean, I had people. I had professors. My wife. Who said, "You can do this," but he was the first person in the position to help me do it, who said, "I believe in you." So it was great. And thank you, Sandy Dennis. But for every actor, there's a different story. Nobody has the same story. If you ask somebody, "How did you do this?" everybody has a weird, different story. It's fascinating.
I know I'm not supposed to ask this because I've had my turn, but how many actors do not have an agent and work independently?
No.
Successful? Do you have to have an agent?
Well, I mean, if you're, yeah.
You have to.
Yeah, you do.
So like a book, I'm an author and I'm trying to get it published. I'm being told by the publishing companies that they won't talk to me unless I have an agent.
Well, that's the catch-22 in Hollywood. It's like you can't get a job without an agent, and you can't get an agent until they see you do something on screen. So how does that work? I don't know. It's just, it's weird.
And you have to sign up for SAG, right?
You don't sign up. You have to be
You have
asked
to-
to join.
yeah.
You can't get a union job until you get a union job.
Yeah.
You can't get a union job if you're not in the union, and you can't get in the union until you get a union job. So it's
That's a catch-22. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Sure.
I'm a big 6 Feet Under fan, and I just want to ask, how did you end up getting cast in that? It's objectively one of the top 5 TV shows ever.
The question is, how did you end up getting cast in 6 Feet Under?
I read for Alan Ball. I auditioned for Alan Ball, and he said, "I want you to do it." And I was only supposed to do the pilot. I was just written in the pilot, and that was it. I was gone. So I did the pilot, and then he called and he said, you know, we don't stop thinking about our parents when they die. So would you come back and do more? I said, yeah, absolutely. So that's how that happened. Yeah.
I think we have one more question over here.
Hi there. So when you first started, you talked about being drawn to acting. My question is, was it more being able to tell stories, or is it to inhabit characters?
I always wanted to be able to sing and write and paint. I couldn't do any of those things. I always felt I was insecure. I loved the idea of finding common ground with people watching. I just love that idea. I don't know. I just don't know. I knew I drove a laundry truck trying to become an actor, and I drove it for about 4 or 5 months. I had 5 accidents. And I thought, I better make it as an actor because I can't even drive a laundry truck. It was just one of those things where it's kind of not it's kind of who I was. You know, it's really who I was, and I didn't even know it until I was in. People tell me that, you know, when I was 14, I was saying, I'm going to be an actor. I look back at my high school yearbook. I hope you become an actor. I know you want to be an actor. It's like I don't remember a lot of this stuff, but it's just always been there for me. And I never saw theater. I was never like, I never went to Broadway. I just didn't. I just watched movies, and I thought that would be fun. But, you know, it never occurred to me not to be an actor. I guess that's my point, which is good, you know, because it never occurred to me to quit. And it probably should have a few times, but it never did.
All
No
right.
questions? Nobody
No
else?
more questions? All right, well, everybody, let's
Thank
thank
you.
Richard
Thank
for
you for
coming
coming.
out.